Hi, I'm Lindsay Grice, and in the clinics that I teach, I take those widely taught natural horsemanship principles, things like how a horse is wired, how a horse learns a given skill, what makes a horse tick, but I apply those to real-life horse show situations.
My riding career got off to a rough start. I basically didn't have the foundation to compete at the level I was. Lessons were big on yelling and short on explanation. But it really served to make me a better teacher.
You want to focus on the 3 P's: pace, path, and position. Your horse should be as adjustable as a rubber band. Moving on down to our seat. Now our seat is the stride length regulator. If you picture your horse is in a box, if you just pull on the reins, your horse is going to be out the back of the box unless you use your leg and your seat to keep his leg going, his stride going. What do we do when we post? Well, our posting is also our stride regulator. So you can kind of think of it like, horse, I am not posting to your trot. You are trotting to my post. So your posting, if anybody plays the piano here, is your metronome. 1, 2, 1, 2. Keep the rhythm going like a metronome. 1, 2. Every stride has got to match.
Simply put, I needed advanced riding for dummies. I really could have used it laid out like this. These are the tools you'll need in your toolkit to move into competition. This is why you'll need them and when, and this is how to do them.
So I resolved when I was a coach that I would clearly explain the hows and the whys of horsemanship. Exactly where do I use my leg to achieve what I want in the horse? Exactly how do I use my hand? And explain these in word pictures that any rider can understand. The whys of horsemanship. From the horse's perspective, how does he interpret what I'm doing? Am I providing a clear yes and a clear no? And the application for the skill down the road.
Starting up at the top, I've already talked about your eyes. You're going to be looking about 30 feet ahead. Don't be afraid to turn your eyes and look where you're going. I'm going to move down to the hands because this is probably the biggest problem area that I see in English riders today. What we want to have, and of course this crosses all disciplines. If you're riding a Western horse with 2 hands, it's the same thing. We want to have your elbows bent and a straight line from elbow to hand to bit. So if we choose to have our horses in an elevated frame, our hands are going to be higher. If we choose to have our horse in a lower frame, our hands are going to be lower. But I see this all the time. I see riders making the mistake of riding with their hands on their thighs or pulling up, disrupting that elbow to hand to bit line. So when you're using your hand, you're going to feel your elbows coming back to make contact, and there you can apply some sponginess, almost as if your hands were holding sponges, to ask the horse's jaw to unlock. When you've made a connection with your horse and your horse has turned that ear back to you and given his jaw, what do you do, Dawn? What's the word? Remember what I said? How do you say yes to your horse? Do you remember, Barry? Melt. That's right. That's
like 4 letters.
What is it? That's my word. When you're going to say yes to your horse, because remember, we're always saying either no or yes. We're always asking or we're saying yes. I'm going to encourage you to melt. Soften your arm. And I've said this before. It's kind of like the arm that when you got your cup of Tim Hortons coffee and you're driving your car and you're going over the train tracks, it's that shock-absorbing, educated arm. So that you can ride when you're riding your English horse. Just take up your reins for a second, Barry. On contact and yet be delivering a yes to your horse's mouth because your arm is soft. Okay? So what I'm saying is, for our English horses, we don't have to say yes by putting a drape in the rein. I mean, I see some people riding with skipping rope reins. Okay? You can say yes, and you are, as long as your horse isn't feeling any weight in his mouth, isn't feeling any kind of pull at the corner of his mouth, you're saying yes. So I'm going to encourage you to have a noodle arm.
You are the herd leader. The herd leader decides we're going to go for water right now, we're going to go for rain right now, we're going to go for shade, and all the rest of them follow. And that's the way horses are wired.
that they want a leader. You have to be the decision maker.
I went off pattern more than anyone I've heard of. But this gives me an empathy for those who have concentration problems or fear issues, because I've had to learn how to memorize and go in with a game plan. And now with coaching and sports psychology training, I can equip my students with the tools I wish I had.
I teach them how to have a show day game plan and also a strategy for every class. And not only that, but we go over the daily lesson plan. When you come out to that practice ring, so many of us don't have a plan and we end up just going around in an oval. And how do I teach a horse a specific skill? And how do I goal set that I am working in building blocks, building a simple skill into a more complex skill?
I have gone off course so many times when I was riding as a junior rider that I have had to make myself memorize courses, and this is how I've done it. First of all, I will walk it. So I will get my cones and I will actually physically have my students walk the course without their horses. Looking at it on paper and translating it to the ring is just not good enough. So I'll walk it, then I will talk it. Remember, make a little rhyme or a little pattern for you to remember. The last thing I have to do is I have to watch it. Likely the class before me will have the same or a similar pattern. I will get to the ring and I will watch where are the judges sitting, how far are the cones spaced apart. Sometimes you'll be surprised that the cones are spaced much closer than you envisioned, and you need to practice a very tight pattern in a shorter, more compact frame. Everything we do in equitation, we have to prepare before the cones. That's whatever you're doing, even if you're a dressage rider, before the next transition, you need to start preparing well in advance. So because I need to pick up the canter, I'm going to be sitting down right about here, collecting my horse a greater degree, angling my horse slightly like this to pick up the right lead. I'm going to do a hairpin turn around this cone. Hairpin turn, again, the rules for a tight turn are as follows. Keep your horse straight off your outside aids. So I'm going to envision this looking like a stop sign, straight-sided. Turn my eyes farther ahead than I'm comfortable with. So my eyes are going to turn right around over here and collect my horse a little bit. So you're going to have to shrink your horse's stride probably to about a 4-foot stride coming around this corner.
How do I avoid or deal with show ring anticipation or ring sourness? What happens when it starts to rear its ugly head? Or distractions, for instance, spooking. How do I avoid or contain a spook? We will actually set up a spooky object and ride by it and go through the step-by-step process of how to contain a spook. Whinnying, when my horse is distracted and whinnying for his buddies. What do I do in that situation? Why does it happen? And finally, my horse is maybe afraid of traffic in a crowded exercise ring. How do I deal with that? Why does it happen? How can I prepare for this at home? So as soon as you see the horse go like this, we need to make a connection, and I've just told you how to do that. To turn the horse's attention away from the spooky object, saying, I am the herd leader. Never mind, carry on past that. It is not worthy of stopping and having a look at. Okay, so we're not going to make a big deal about it. Any kind of fear that you're instilling in your horse is translated to the spooky object. Your goal is to make it as pleasant a place as you can. So as soon as you connect to me, horse, what's the word, Jen? What do? Melt, okay? Ask, melt. The more you melt, the more the horse is going to, I guess I can relax too. But if you're, don't you dare, you curly horse, all the way around, without slipping a little melt in, that horse is going to transfer this unpleasant experience to that thing right there. You know, some principles of advanced riding are complex, and my aim is to break them down into very simple steps. I've always been puzzled by horse jargon, and I think other people are too. And so I will explain what it means for a horse to be on the bit, for instance. Or what does it mean when he drops his shoulder? How can I avoid it? What does it look like? How do I recognize a good mover? Exactly what is he doing with his front legs and his back legs that make him a good mover? What is the judge looking for in any given class? Or what is self-carriage? Why is it important? How do I achieve it? Exactly what is a half halt? When do I apply it? What do I do with my hands and my leg aids to achieve a half halt, breaking it down? There are so many other terms like this that we go over in clinics, and I explain them and I unpack them into simple terms. And it is so gratifying to see a smile come across someone's face, that relief, a light bulb goes on when finally it's explained in simple terms that everyone can understand.
When you are riding in the correct position, your shoulders, hip, and heel are in line. And I'm going to come over this side and show the other people on the other side. Your shoulder, hip, and heel are in line. And your stirrup leather is going to be perpendicular to the ground. You see, there's two different places for your leg. There's at the girth, and there is behind the girth. Behind the girth controls the hindquarters, at the girth controls the middle, and when you apply both legs at the girth, that is, I call that squirting the horse forward like toothpaste out of a tube. That is your go forward cue. You would be surprised how many horses I get in for training that when I'm trotting and I want them only to leg yield, they actually pick up a canter because they haven't learned the difference between my leg here and my leg displaced behind the girth. So your horse has to know the difference. What I'm after is using your outside rein and outside leg to put your horse in a square corner. So you're going to ride your horse as straight as a 2x4 around, very good, around this corner. Almost as if it's between the shafts of a buggy. So when Jen asks her horse to do a square corner, beautiful, that was great. She actually has to turn with the horse's left leg crossing over the right leg. But it's okay to look down sometimes. And what you're doing is you're monitoring, where are my horse's ears? Are they looking to the outside? Are they, pricked ears are not your friend. Because they are going to mean a spook is coming or interest is coming. So you always watch your horse's ears, just kind of checking in with you from time to time. I call that soft ears. Every time your horse makes an unauthorized decision in the show ring, he's going to make more and more. Okay, so sometimes even we need to blow the class because the horse has made a big unauthorized decision. And if we let that go, the next time it's going to be only worse and worse. So use your training time. So make use of every single time you're in that ring to do some training. I'm going to change my diagonal here. My eyes are going to turn and look at my destination because where I look, I will go. And I'm going to know that right here, because you have to prepare for everything before the cones, I'm going to start sitting in preparation for my square corner. So I'm going to sit, connect, because I cannot make a transition or a square corner unless my horse is connected to me. Unless he's going, yes, Lindsay, what would you like? If he's off looking at the gate, I'm going to get a crummy square corner. If this ring was bigger and we might be cantering off or loping off on the right lead, instead of doing a 360-degree turn, I might do a 365-degree turn to prepare my horse an angle for the right lead. If I was going to pick up a left lead, I might do a 350-degree turn to prepare my horse an angle for the left lead.